Hi, this is Attorney Clay Dawson of the Dawson Law Firm. This video is about DWI field sobriety tests. There are 3 standardized field sobriety tests. I think they're worthless and you can decline to take them. I don't know how many sober people would pass these tests. I don't know whether I would pass these tests without anything to drink, without anything to impair me. The tests are often done incorrectly by the officers. The circumstances of the test just don't lend themselves to a real objective test with real accurate results. And they're not needed by the officer. These tests are designed to help the officer determine whether there is probable cause to believe that you have committed the offense of DWI. They don't need the test. Officers were providing their opinions on DWI before we ever had the tests. And whether or not you perform to an officer's satisfaction, he can form an opinion outside of those tests. So let's go over probable cause and field sobriety tests. Before any of these tests are even offered, you've already been tested. No matter who the officer is or who the patrolman is, you've already been tested. When the blue lights came on, the trooper, the officer, observed how you stopped, how long it took you, where you stopped, was it appropriate? That's the first one. When he approaches the car and asks you to either lower your window, if your window is lowered, he's going to detect the odor of alcohol, if there is any. He'll determine whether it is a strong odor of alcohol or a moderate odor of alcohol. You hardly ever hear them say a slight odor of alcohol. And he will observe your eyes. And they love to say that the defendant had glassy, red, bloodshot eyes. Well, you know, that might be because most DWIs seem to be 2, 3 in the morning. They're almost always after midnight. Most of them are after midnight for some reason. In any event, that's another clue that they have. Then they ask you a question, may have your driver's license registration. If you speak, and chances are you're going to have to speak. If they ask you to identify yourself, you're going to have to do that. But if you speak, then they are listening. Is the speech slurred? Now, they've never heard you talk before in your life. But to them, it may sound slurred even if it isn't. But that would be a clue. Then the next test is when they ask you for your driver's license and registration card. That's what's called a divided attention test. An impaired driver may hand the officer things other than the driver's license and registration. Might give the officer a credit card, or it might give them some other document, might give them a company ID card that may be used as a sign of impairment. Or it could be that the driver is rattled because he or she's been stopped in the middle of the night after a long day and taken out of their routine with the blue lights on them from behind flashing, pulled over on the side of the road and traffic passing them and being concerned, am I going to be arrested? So I'm not really sure how all of these play out, but all we're talking about is the officer getting an opinion of whether the driver is appreciably impaired. Now we get to the field sobriety test. There are 3 of them. You see how much they've already tested you, though? And they've been doing that for years. Oh, ladies, let me tell you, if you have any pills in your purse, when you open up your purse to give the officer your driver's license, guess what? He's going to look in the purse. He's already scoped out the car to see if there's any drugs in it, any bottles, anything to indicate any impairing substances or paraphernalia. So when you open up your pocketbook, if he sees pill bottles, he's going to want to know what they are, because they can convict you of DWI for prescription medications. May ask to have the bottle so that he can count the pills and determine whether or not there are too few pills in the bottle, so he could assert, well, you must be taking more than what was prescribed, to base his opinion on impairment, to claim that you're impaired because you took too much of your medications. Now, you could take the prescribed amount and be found guilty of DWI. So, ladies, please just put your pill bottles somewhere else. Do not keep them in plain view for an officer to see if you get pulled over. It's just inviting suspicion of DWI or DWI charge. Just don't do it. See how much testing that everybody's been through already? Let me tell you, when that officer looks in your car, he's not looking at the colors. He's not looking at how nice the panels are. He's looking, they're looking, and they are trained to look around to see exactly what is in place, what is out of place, whether there's anything in there that shouldn't be there. Now we get to the field sobriety test. The first one is called a horizontal gaze nystagmus test, or HGN. Now, nystagmus tests are routinely done by physicians, neurologists. They're used as diagnostic tests. They're used to determine different nervous conditions, nerve diseases, and that sort of thing. And they're usually done by doctors in a clinical element. The test that you're going to get is not going to be by a doctor, and it's not going to be in a clinical area. Can you imagine your doctor calling you and saying, Mr. Smith? Yes? Mr. Smith, we need to do a nystagmus test for diagnostic purposes. So we're scheduling you for a diagnostic test. We're scheduling you for a nystagmus test at 3 in the morning tonight, and it's going to be on the side of the road, of a busy, crowded road with traffic crossing you. And in addition to that, we're going to have red, blue, and white strobe lights flashing at you the whole time. Do you think that's going to happen? No. It's laughable. But that's exactly the situation and the condition in which you're going to be tested. Nystagmus can be caused by so many different things. It's naturally occurring. The term nystagmus actually came from the Greeks. Very observant people. I mean, they were curious about everything. And it was noticed that that moment just before someone falls asleep, that their eye would twitch. And they called that nystagmus. And that's what we're talking about, a twitching of the eye. Not the eyebrows or the eyelids, but the actual eye itself. And it happens. It's naturally occurring. One thing that causes nystagmus are flashing lights. And, you know, when you have that at least one patrol car behind you, and it's strobe lights, red, white, and blue, flashing and bouncing off of everything that there is, don't tell me that doesn't affect a person's eye. I think that surely it does. Being tired can cause nystagmus. And if you look at the hour most DWIs occur, they're early morning hours. Most people are tired. They've had a long day. They were going home. That's typical. So typically you have somebody that's tired, they're pulled out of their daily routine, they got car lights flashing, they're on the side of the road, they have the bouncing strobe lights from the police car. And I just find it laughable that this is supposed to be a standardized field sobriety test. I think it's entirely inappropriate. That being said, we have one trooper in this district, and the police officers who usually refer their DWIs to them, because the troopers are trained for this. They are very well trained. The highway patrolmen, they get more training, and this is all they do. They don't serve process like deputies do. They don't break up domestic disturbances like deputies or police officers do. They don't arrest people for larceny and other things. They are trained for the highway. That's it. And let me tell you, they're well trained. If anybody's going to do a DWI right, it's going to be a trooper. If you have a member of a DWI task force, they usually will do fairly well. But the troopers, they're the ones that's their thing, man. So, you have a HGN test being done under the worst circumstances, but can it be done correctly? I've had police officers tell me about one of our troopers here, and he's very, very well trained. He's got curriculum vitae that would take up 20, 30 pages, certified for almost anything you could think of. But this trooper, they tell me that he can do the horizontal gaze nystagmus test, and he can tell them within 0.02 what the blood alcohol content is going to be with that individual. That's not bad. You know, and I give it some credence because I know the officers and I know the trooper. So although I don't endorse it as a test, I don't find it acceptable. Apparently some people can do it pretty well. The next test is the walk and turn. And these tests always have a little hitch in them. With the walk and turn, they will give you instructions because you've never done it before. But when they give you instructions, you probably are already distracted by the situation. You may or may not be hearing them. You may or may not be paying them 100% attention. You may have other things on your mind with blue lights flashing. Am I going to be arrested? Is somebody going to be able to pick me up? Am I going to be able to get to work tomorrow? Am I going to be fired? And things like that. So maybe the person, sober or impaired, doesn't hear the instructions correctly. That's another reason I recommend against doing them. But this test is a walk and turn. You're to take 9 steps down an imaginary line because the troopers and the officers don't take a line with them. I don't know how they could. But to take 9 steps up and down, back and forth, one time, up and back, 9 steps, heel to toe. Is supposed to yield clues. They look at the balance. They look if the person can't stay on the line. And then they walk, notice how the turn is. And whether the person takes 9 steps or 10 or more, because the instructions say 9 steps. Most people think in terms of 10s. That's just the way our society is. The reason they say 9 is it's a test of divided attention. An impaired person is not likely to do the 9 steps. I don't think the unimpaired person is likely to do the 9 steps. In any event, that's the second test. The third test is the one-legged stand, which I just think is ridiculous. I've had troopers tell me that they don't know that they can do it. Now, maybe they had to do it to get their certification, but when they do it, it's not under the same conditions. When they do it, it's under optimum clinical conditions, indoors, during the day. They're ready for it, they're prepared for it, they're there for it, they are told how to do it, and they've heard them tell others how to do it. So they know exactly how to do it, they're ready for it, they're usually fit and healthy and proper. Not all drivers are in as good shape as these troopers. And I'll tell you, most drivers aren't in as good shape as our troopers. So you're supposed to stand on one leg, and they let you choose left leg or right leg. And you're supposed to stick your leg out in front of you with your foot facing forward. And you're supposed to stand on that like that for 30 seconds with your hands down to your sides. You can't have them out across your sides. You can't hold your hands out to balance yourself. So your hands are supposed to be down your sides in a very awkward position, and you're supposed to maintain that for 30 seconds. Try it. All right, now, they look for clues on that. If you don't do it for 30 seconds, if you can't do it for 30 seconds, then that's a clue of impairment. Or it's a clue to me that you just don't have really good balance. So those are the 3 standardized field sobriety tests. Now, what good are they? I've tried DWIs out where I could prove that the officer did every test wrong and challenge probable cause on that basis. However, it doesn't matter. The law has always been that the officer can form his opinion on his observations. So what good are the tests? As a defense attorney, I often use them to help my client because I can highlight all the things that they did do well. Because the state wants to paint your client out to be drunk. So it can actually be used in your favor, but I don't recommend even playing the game because you're not going to win. I don't care if you're a professional athlete. I just don't think that you're going to pass these tests to the officer's satisfaction. I just don't see it happening. You don't have to do the test. If you have any physical impairments, they will ask you, and you'll tell them, yeah, I had back surgery, or I have a rod in my leg, and I can't do it. They'll still ask you to do it. Just don't do it. This is Attorney Clay Dawson of the Dawson Law Firm. Thank you for watching.